Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of Elevenses. It's Friday, it's the 1st of May. We're into another month, and here in London, we've got April showers at last. They're a month late, but they have finally arrived. We've lost the gorgeously sunny weather that we've been having for the last 4 or 5 weeks, but it's bearable. Okay, I've got a mixed bag of stories for you today. I'll be taking a quick look at Honda's virtual showcases. We'll be talking about how you can have your cake and ride it. The Japanese manufacturers have edged towards common electric bike standards. So that's a holdover from Wednesday's show. I ran out of time. And last but not least, I'll give you a heads up on what it's like to have a lithium battery actually installed on your own bike. So stay tuned to the end of the show. If you can. If you can't, you can use it to catch up later. Don't forget, if you have a question or anything to say or a suggestion for a future show, use the comments box and I'll try and get back to you with an answer when we go off air. Okay, so on with the first story. Well, the two Japanese bike shows, two big ones, were due to happen at the end of last month. The Osaka Motorcycle Show, which was over the long weekend of Friday the 20th, Saturday the 21st, and Sunday the 22nd of March. And that would have been followed last weekend by the hugely important Tokyo Motorcycle Show. Of course, both events were cancelled. So Honda have announced a virtual motorcycle show. I've put the link actually up in the comments already. That went up online last Friday instead of the Tokyo show. Now, the bad news is that it's in Japanese, but you can have a look around anyway. And one model that caught my eye was the Honda CT125 Hunter Cub. And again, I've popped a photo of that up for you to have a look at. It's gone from a concept model that was shown at various bike shows last year to an actual production model. Now, what is it? Well, it's a kind of stripped down step through, really, isn't it? It vaguely reminds me of the C90s with the leg boards taken off. Many years ago, one of the things that I did for a bit of fun was moped endurance racing. And whilst we went for the two-stroke option, with a little Kawasaki AR50. A lot of people raced the C50 versions, and it very much reminds me of that kind of machine, with the single seat and that big rack on the back as well. What's the likely market? Well, I can see it being a big seller in somewhere like Indonesia, where inexpensive motorcycles are an everyday means of transport. Maybe if the price can be kept reasonable, it could attract sort of Deliveroo type of riders here in the UK. But I can actually see the machine becoming a little bit of a cult model, like these sort of monkey bikes. The photo there that you can see shows it in a sort of an adventure biking style. And the interesting thing is, of course, there are always people out there who are interested in a bit of a challenge and trying to do a journey that some people would do on a sort of 1200, 1250 BMW GS. Others will try to tackle on a bike 1/10 the size. So watch out for these. I think they could actually become a surprise bestseller, and that's even without the effects of the coronavirus on people's pockets. Something I'll be looking at in another show, actually. Honda also created a virtual motorsports land to showcase the sporting side of the company. There are two versions of that, one in Japanese, but you can also find an English version on the Honda Global website. There's a 360-degree tour of the Honda Collection Hall where you can zoom around. Pretty impressive display of bikes and other vehicles, cars and experimental things. You can look at all of those. There are also various videos, racing, endurance racing, company history, that kind of thing. If you've got time on your hands, you can download and build a paper model of an F1 car, or you can download colouring sheets for a couple of bikes. There's a CRF 450 and there's a CBR 1000 RR superbike that you can get as well. If you're not interested, maybe hand them over to the kids, something to do. So, okay, just to remind you, you are watching Elevenses with Kevin Williams here of Survival Skills. Still to come, we'll be looking at Cake. Swedish bikes are about to go on delivery. Why common charging standards are quite important for electric motorcycles, and we'll finish up the story with the pros and cons of a lithium-ion bike battery. Okay, so, all right, second story then. You can have your cake and ride it. Sorry, that was a terrible line, but I just had to use it, really, didn't I? Cake are a Swedish company, and they announced yesterday that they've actually started delivering their bikes. They make what they describe as, to read and quote, a lightweight electric off-road performance motorcycle. And their first bike that's going on delivery is the something called Nossa. It's a utility motorcycle platform, and initially deliveries are going out to the USA. The other markets, Europe, Asia, Pacific, other global markets, will be coming on stream, they say, in the coming weeks. So what do they say about it? We are thrilled to announce that the Ossa platform is now ready for delivery to riders in the US and within just a few weeks around the world, remarked Cake brand manager Zach Clayton out in the USA. Whether it's a restaurant delivery service doing neighborhood deliveries or a surfer looking for a low impact way to get to the beach with their board, the Ossa models provide so many ways for people to expand enterprise opportunities and exploration. Stefan Itterborn, he's the founder of Cake, he said, our ambition has been to create a motorbike that would serve as a powerful utility, transportation and exploration tool. A tool that not only carries an abundance of gear, but also serves as a mobile workshop and a rolling power station. Well, okay, that's the marketing hyperbole. What is all the bike hoo-ha about? Well, if you look at the picture, when I first saw it, it kind of reminded me of the bastard cross of a Black & Decker Workmate and the old paratroop folding bike that was dropped on Arnhem, if you remember that, way back in World War II. Essentially, it's a sort of a modular bike. It's aimed at the commuter market, and as they say, somebody with some modest off-road needs. But it features what I think is actually rather clever design. Now, the most obvious feature is that sort of big backbone beam running down the spine of the machine, which allows various bits to be bolted on. You can see the seats bolted on, for example, clamped to that beam, and presumably allows you to move it back and forth. The sort of cat carrier box on the back is also a bolt-on item. But have a look at where the motor is. It appears to be coaxially placed with the swinging arm pivot. Now, that is actually quite clever, because what it means is that the drive belt tension remains the same, whatever the position of the swinging arm. So as the rear end compresses as you hit a bump, a normal drive belt will actually tighten up and slacken off as the suspension moves through its travel, because normally the drive isn't in line with the pivot point of the swinging arm. And that's why you have to leave some slack in a chain. And it also means drive belts have to be a bit stretchy. Well, presumably by putting the motor in line with the axle, or the swinging arm pivot rather, they can use a lighter belt. So that's quite an interesting thing. Rather ambitiously, the press release also talks of being able to use the bike to power, they suggested off-road, off-the-grid cinema nights in the woods, backcountry live gigs, and dinner parties at the beach. Well, I'm not entirely convinced about that. This rolling power station idea that you can hook the Os's battery up to drive electrical items. I don't think you're going to be powering your local football pitch's practice lights with it, and I doubt you'll be running a cool box either on a hot sunny day for very long before you're pushing the bike home. But presumably you could power an iPad or sort of portable speakers or something like that without too much trouble. I think the far more interesting thing is that modular concept. That clamp-on system allows baskets, bags, tools all to be attached. And Cake actually claimed that there are 1,000 different possible configurations, although whether that's actually via their factory options or just speculation about what an owner could do, I don't actually know. It wasn't entirely clear in the press release. How much are you going to pay for this? Well, there are two versions initially on delivery. There's the Ossa Lite, which is legally a moped, so it can be ridden on a moped. That's a B1 license, if I remember correctly, and so it's restricted to a top speed of about 30 miles an hour. That at the moment we have a dollar price of $6,500 US. That'll probably translate pretty much dollar to pound. It usually does, or maybe a little bit higher even, as the pound's not been doing too well just recently. So fairly expensive for a moped. The Ossa Plus, which is a motorcycle version, capable of up to 60 miles per hour. So that's available for those on an A1 motorcycle license, is priced at $8,500. What's the range? Well, for both models, it's billed as up to 60 odd miles. Possibly the moped will manage that flat out. I suspect that the 60 mile per hour version will probably get considerably less than that. But again, for urban use, for short range commuting, and even for that all important trip to the beach with your surfboard, if you happen to be living just a mile or two from the beach, it'll probably do the trick. I think we kind of underplay just how adaptable we are for a short range vehicle at times when we talk about limited range on electric bikes. Right, okay, moving on from that. At this point, I would normally tell you that my books are still available, my paperbacks, on my Lulu Spotlight page on my publisher's site, but the publishers have done something clever with the page. They've completely redesigned it, and guess what? It doesn't work. I couldn't actually access any of my account details yesterday when I looked. So I have no idea whether or not books are actually being purchased and dispatched at the moment. So bear with me on that one, if you will. If you come over to my Ko-fi page, I have made available a PDF version of the Science of Being Seen, which you can download there. Okay, so all right, what have we got to come? I'll be finishing off with a review of a lithium-ion battery and how you might be able to use one of those to get your bike in a better condition to be stored while we're in lockdown. But we'll come back to that in a moment. First of all, I just want to carry on with the electric theme, actually. I talked about the Kawasaki Ninja 400 based electric motorcycle prototype that was shown just recently. And that's a rather tenuous link to bring me onto a story that actually turned out to be just over a year old, but it actually slipped through my feed, and I only just spotted it. Basically, the big four Japanese manufacturers, Suzuki, Yamaha, Honda, Kawasaki, have shown us a stream of electric prototypes in various shapes and sizes. For example, Honda, not too long ago, showed off a CR250 dirt bike concept at the Tokyo Motorcycle Show last year, which was electric powered. Yamaha has a range of electric bicycles for sort of trials use, which they've been showing. The problem is that we haven't really got very far with production machines. There is a hybrid PCX Honda scooter, and there are some electric assisted mountain bikes actually on sale from Yamaha. But up to that point, nothing concrete. But just over a year ago, the manufacturers all agreed to work together towards standardizing replacement battery standards. Now, this is interesting because obviously what that means is you can drop in a battery made for one bike into battery made for the other bike. Now, that's handy for the end user, but it also means, of course, that the manufacturers don't have to reinvent the wheel 4 times over. They can make one battery and it'll work in all the motorcycles. So that obviously works towards bringing down the manufacturer's costs. And that's good news for us, because if it brings down manufacturer costs, it also brings down the end user costs. Now, these replaceable batteries are not a new idea. As far as I know, the first company to announce a repository strategy was a Taiwanese company called Gogoro, and that was all the way back in 2015. And their batteries can either be charged at home, or you can go to a battery swap station and put a fresh battery in if you need a bit more range. The sharing of the technology itself isn't an entirely new idea either. Now, Kimco, who are another Taiwanese company, but one that has the advantage of being a rather better known brand than Gogoro, they launched an Ionix electric bike, electric scooter back in 2018. And they issued an open invitation for all manufacturers to join in the design of compatible batteries. As far as I know, nobody took them up on that offer. But the important thing is, if the Japanese get involved, that's changing the game plan a bit. Now, one of the problems is that standardization, or rather more accurately, a lack of standardization, has something that's bedeviled industry since the Industrial Revolution. Just think the problems between imperial and metric measurements. It's not just that you need 2 different tool sizes to use them. They actually cause some significant problems when people get their measurements crossed. There was a famous probe that I think it was aimed at the Mars, which went horribly wrong because somebody did their calculations in the wrong set of standards. So the goal for the manufacturers here is actually to prevent the different standards coming into operation, and to try to establish a standardized setup right from the off. Now, they're not showing any hardware or distinct plans yet, but they are reportedly, as I say, working on standards concerning the batteries. The other thing that they've been working towards is standardizing the charging station. Now, again, think about this. When you roll up to a petrol pump, you don't open your tank, look at it and think, damn, that's the wrong shape of pump to go in my tank. It just fits. The only thing you have to be careful about is that you don't actually accidentally put diesel in your petrol engine, or vice versa. And yes, I have done that in the past. Fortunately, I did notice before I got more than about a gallon in, but all the same, mistakes can be made. So the problem is that there are a number of different standards already. Now, in the US, electric car owners are already talking in terms of level 1, level 2, and level 3 charging systems. Now, what does that mean exactly? Well, level 1 is a 120 volt system, and that charges up to about 1.9 kilowatts. Essentially, give you a sort of more visual idea of what that means. It means you're plugging your bike into a standard wall outlet. Level 2 means a 240 volt charging up to about 19.2 kilowatts. That requires I don't think you can do it simply by plugging two sockets in. I think this is where you actually need a dedicated charging port which draws directly from the supply to the building. And level 3 is another level up again, which is generally understood to mean DC fast charging. Now, who's got what on their bikes already? Zero's electric motorcycles basically have come with level 1 charging via that 110 volt wall outlet since the off. The newer SRF bike I rode last year and really enjoyed, for those who are interested, that added a higher level 2 charging option. The Lightning Strike, which is another electric model, comes with level 1 and level 2 as standard, and again a top of the range model offers an option to go for the level 3 DC fast charging, which they claim charges the battery in just 35 minutes. It comes as an option for the base models now as well, apparently. The Livewire, which is Harley's own electric motorcycle, is also capable of that level 3 fast charging, and dealers are installing those chargers around their network, and they are putting in electric vehicle charging spots as well for cars. But, and you probably knew there'd be a but, didn't you? The so-called level 3 standard has never been officially standardized. And in any case, although the US has been fairly quick to adopt their own internal standards, there's no guarantee that anybody outside the US will base what they do on the same technology. And it's this variation in charging options that Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, Kawasaki are apparently trying to prevent by setting up this common technical base for batteries and charging stations. Obviously, there's a bit of a race to set global standards, and if four of the world's biggest motorcycle manufacturers work together, they are therefore something of a force to be reckoned with. Now, according to the Japanese press reports, the deal will initially focus on small commuter models up to about 125 engine equivalent. And the same report notes this is the first ever attempt to set up a work group outside the confines of the Japanese automobile manufacturers. So it'd be a bit of a first if they actually collaborate. There have been small scale collaborations between the manufacturers on various issues. You may remember that the Yamaha V-Strom was also Suzuki V-Strom was also badged up as a Kawasaki. So there've been the odd tie-up, but nothing significant. This could be a bit of a game changer. Now, okay, so where are we now? Well, don't forget, you can join me for Elevenses every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, 11. If you miss a show, you can catch up on my YouTube channel, Survival Skills UK. And just to let you know, I'll be recording an interview with the owner of Hideout Leathers, where we'll be broadcasting that on Monday as a continuing part of the series I've been doing on protective clothing. So tune in on Monday and we'll get an interview from Hideout, which I think, again, you'll find very interesting. Okay, so moving on rapidly, last story. I've been talking about easy bike maintenance tasks over the last few weeks to help you deal with lockdown. Well, first day of May, as I said, we're into the 6th week of lockdown, and that means many of us won't have ridden a bike since, well, probably getting on for the middle of March for some of us. Over the last few weeks, I've been talking about some of the things that we can do to the bike to make sure they're ready to ride when we're finally allowed out. There's a good reason for that. It's not just to stop the bike turning into a pile of rust while we all sit indoors. It's a lot of us are going to be rather short of cash when we do go riding, so a bit of effort now could save some pennies later. And mail order is still open, so we can generally get hold of what pieces we need. Now, 5 weeks ago, I mentioned that one of the first things we should be doing would be to put the battery on charge, keep that standard lead acid battery in good condition. Now, lead acid batteries do not like going completely flat. If they do, they become difficult to recover. Of course, when we're riding regularly, the alternator takes care of it all. But parked up, these batteries do discharge. They lose voltage steadily while they're standing. And if you've got an alarm attached, obviously, then you'll be draining that battery even quicker. If we get too deeply discharged, then the chances of recovering the battery go down significantly. Now, you probably remember I was working over in New Zealand in 2018 and 2019. I was away from home for about 6 weeks. I entrusted my camper to my brother. And the idea was that he'd park it outside his garage and attach a battery tender to it and keep the battery charged up, because I know that thing's got an alarm on it which will flatten the battery in about 3 weeks. So I knew that the battery would go flat if something wasn't done. Unfortunately, the thing's got 2 batteries, one of which runs the so-called leisure services, the fridge, the interior lights and things. And being a complete idiot, he hooked up the wrong battery to the charger. So my fridge was working perfectly when I got back, but unfortunately it wouldn't turn the engine over. I did manage to jump start it, but I discovered even when I got back it wouldn't hold the charge for more than a day or two. So that was new battery time. So if you haven't already, think what you're doing with your battery. Either get a charger out to it or take the battery off and bring it indoors. Now, if you do find that you're in need of a new battery, or you're thinking about taking some preemptive action then now might be the time to change technology. Not just to replace it with a standard battery, but to move over to lithium ion. Now, you may know that I have a sort of an aging Hornet, which is my backup bike. That means it's ready to go just in case I need a spare bike for any reason. I do get quite a lot of punctures here in London because there's a lot of building work going on. A lot of roofing bolts and nails and things end up in the road. So every now and again, I wander out to ride my bike off and discover it's got a flat tire, and that's often when the spare comes out. So I do try to keep it moving, but every now and again, a couple of months go by and I've not ridden it. So the Hornet, as a matter of course, is fitted with a fairly small battery, and I've had to replace it several times since I've owned the machine. Most spectacularly when the bike started in Kent, survived the ride up to Oxford, and then wouldn't restart outside a buddy's house. I had to make a quick dash to get a battery from a local bike emporium and delay my trainee by an hour while I fitted a new battery. Anyway, the bike obviously also stood at the same time as the camper, and I came back, as I say, 6 weeks later to find that the latest replacement lead acid battery had also joined the heap of redundant ones in the garage. So I've been reading on and off about lithium ion batteries for quite some while. Now, the important change that has happened over the last couple of years is that the lithium ion batteries are now coming in standard bike shaped dimensions, which basically means they're now a drop-in replacement for the standard lead acid battery. There's no need to pack out the battery box or make some weird connections for it. They just basically go straight in. So I took the plunge and I bought a Shido lithium ion battery. Now these are technology wise much the same as you'd find in the mobile phone or your laptop. They're just bigger. Now you may recall that there were some issues when these batteries first appeared, specifically their capacity for catching fire. There was a well-documented series of incidents involving phones, laptops, and even Boeing Dreamliners, which were fitted with lithium batteries that caught fire. So I have to admit there was a little nagging worry at the back of my head when I bolted in my brand new lithium battery from Shido. Well, 2 years on, and I'm happy to say that the bike has not self-immolated. It's still perfectly good. Battery's still in fine functioning fashion. So what have been the benefits of a lithium-ion battery? Well, the big one is that the discharge rate is almost non-existent. If there's nothing actually draining the battery, that battery will stay charged up. As I said, even when there's nothing sucking current, a standard lead-acid battery will lose charge with time. So how quickly do we lose from a lithium ion? Well, basically the answer is negligible. You can fit a battery, come back to it a couple of months later, and it will be pretty much in the same state that you left it, whereas the lead acid will have lost several, some 10 or 15% of its oomph. So that's the first plus. The second is that the batteries also pack a higher charge density. Now that essentially means that you get more energy in the same space. So that has two benefits. You can kick the engine over a little bit faster, which can help if you're restarting after a bit of a while when the bike hasn't run. And it can allow for more restarts, more turnovers before the battery starts to flatten. And the third benefit is that in terms of longevity, they simply appear to last longer. Some of the old lead acid batteries that you remember topping up with fluid did actually last quite a while, but the current crop are all sealed for life. And what that means is the water levels do go down internally. They have to breathe, and that breather pipe actually vents some of your water to the outside air. So they do lose capacity. And I found that even some of the best only last 2 or 3 years, when 10 years used to be the age for some of the older lead acid batteries. Now, these lithium-ion batteries, one of the things that bike magazines tend to promote is the fact that they're lighter. Now, a typical motorcycle-sized battery, you are going to be weighing in at about 3 kilos for the lead acid battery and something around about 1 kilo for the lithium ion. So you're going to save 2 kilos. That's good, and it might make a difference to a racer. But quite frankly, one magazine said that you could immediately feel the reduced weight when riding. Well, I can't, and I doubt anybody can feel 2 kilos go missing when they're riding. It's slightly more than the weight of 2 litres of fuel. And if you can feel the difference in that as you're riding, you're a more sensitive rider than I am. So am I happy? Well, the answer is yes. The battery was a little more expensive than the equivalent replacement, like a Yuasa or a Bosch, but I saved a bit of money by buying a slightly smaller battery, remembering that extra battery cranking power. So in fact, the Shido was probably only about 20% more expensive than a top-of-the-range Yuasa. Now, it doesn't mean that lithium-ion batteries are perfect. You may recall the first generation of those batteries that appeared in phones and laptops bricked if you let them run down too flat. The latest generation are much more robust because they have circuitry built in to protect them from going completely flat. Nevertheless, it isn't a great idea to run them right down as low as they'll go. So there is an extra good feature on the Shido battery, and that is a very simple battery test button. All you do is press it, and there's a line of 3 LEDs marked low, medium, and full. It couldn't be easier to tell the state of your battery. No fiddling around with a voltmeter. Some people have complained, oh, but it's fiddly to get to. Well, for heaven's sake, honestly. On the Hornet, I just have to remove the side panel, unhook the battery strap, pull the battery out slightly to one side, and there's the button, and there's the LEDs. I can see them. There may be a few bikes where the battery is really deeply buried, but basically, they're usually fairly straightforward to get to. Any other minuses? Well, I was told they didn't like starting in cold weather, and the tip was to turn the headlight on, leave it on for a few seconds, and then as the current draws from the battery through the light, it actually warms up the battery and that you get better cranking power. Now, I think I remembered that probably for the first 2 or 3 times I actually started the bike, and then I forgot. And I haven't noticed any starting issues here in London. Now, we don't get sub-zero temperatures all that often, but I've not found it an issue in UK, sort of southern UK weather. Bikes always started when I needed it to, and the big plus was that when I got back from New Zealand in 2019, the battery fired the bike up fine. So would I recommend that you switch? Under normal circumstances, I'd say think about the swap when the battery gets tired on your bike, but right now might not be such a bad time to actually think about a swap. You can get the lithium-ion battery and then bring your lead acid one inside and keep it in tip-top condition. Don't forget that lithium-ion one will last. Unlike a lead acid battery, it won't age. Okay, normally I'd say ride the bike, that will charge it up, but just be careful if you do need to charge your battery off the bike, you do need a special charger. Well, that's it for today. Back on Sunday. In the meantime, don't forget to check out the regular posts. They're still going up on Facebook, even if not so many people are reading them. So hopefully see you next time out. That'll be on Sunday. Bye for now.